All right, we are going to, in the real world here, actually almost do the full CRUD. We're going to create, update, and delete a recipe. We won't necessarily need to read a recipe because we're going to create it. So we will have CRUD-ish actions on a recipe hands-on. So and then we'll move into actually doing that in our application in code. What do I mean here? So I'm in the terminal. We've already created a recipe. We've made a migration. We've given it a name column before we made the migration, and we can see in TablePlus there's our recipe. Let's actually put something in there. Let's build something. And a perfect place to do this is in what's called the Flask Shell, which comes along with Flask, and it's a great tool. I would live here. Every app for me would be a Flask Shell, but we'll see that you have to have routes and that kind of thing. So, but let's see what Flask Shell is. So if you have been watching these videos, you've probably seen me do this. I have this really nice run.sh, and when I run that, a whole bunch of tabs open up. There's a video where I went through each one of those tabs. It opens up your code editor. It opens up the web application in a new page here. So it, if you can go back and watch the video on what each one of these tabs is doing. Now this only works on Mac. One of the tabs opens up Flask Shell for you. If you can't run that command, that's okay. Don't stress and stop this video or something. You can do it right here. You just need to be in your project, and then the normal way of doing this is to activate your virtual environment. So source, then activate. And then you'll see the environment name over here on the left. Now, I call it .venv. A lot of times now they're calling it .venv, which you would do source .venv, then instead of then, it would be the dot would be there. But you should see it over here on the left, and then you just type in Flask Shell. That's it. Boom. Now, what's great about Flask Shell versus a lot of times you're like, well, I can do that. I just type in Python and I'm in my interpreter. The difference here is that this knows about your app. You even actually have app in here. You can use app. And there is a little bit of magic. It knows about all the models in your app. So I can start typing in recipe. Let's clear that up. I can start typing in recipe and it will know what recipe is. Now, normally you would have to do something like this. You would have to say from app.models import recipe. But we don't have to do that. We can just go directly and we can start using recipe. Now, the reason that works, I've explained a bit down here. Let me just show you in VS Code what's going on. So in your app, when you open up app under your dunder init file, there is a line right here, and I've actually highlighted already, from app import models. So that, along with Flask SQL Alchemy, and in the documentation, it says it sets add models to shell. It sets it to true by default. So those two things combined are allowing you to automatically have access to all your models in your interpreter. All right, so let's make a recipe. So we'll do recipe is equal to, and then capital recipe. Now, if I just do that, I'm going to get a recipe. If you say the name because we have an attribute name. We migrated it with the attribute name. And then let's make salad as the name. All right, so we'll press enter and we can print the name or print recipe. Now you can either type recipe and it will print, or you can type in print recipe. Either one works. But notice here when I do this, it says ID is none. So it's running the rep is what it's doing. It's running that rep method, and which says print recipe. We wrote this out in our print statement in the rep. If we go down here to the model recipes, we wrote out that part right there. So that's coming from us. But then this is, it's saying, go get the ID value. And it says it's none. And actually, if I do recipe.id, I should get none. And none printed, it just is no, there's nothing to print. So P will actually print none if I do this. .id. There you go. So it's none. Why is it none? It's none because we haven't actually saved this to the database. If I go into the database and I refresh, and there's a button over here you can press to refresh, or I'm pressing Command R and it's refreshing, there's no row in here. So in order to save it to the database, we have this nice method called store in database. And if I go here, we'll just use that. So let's go store it in the database. So recipe.store in database. And this is where that self, and in the prior video, so this is a method on an instance of this method in the class. And here's an instance recipe. And so self is referring to the thing to the left of the dot. So we're not passing in recipe. We're not doing something like this. That's not how Python classes work. So for Python class, just the notation would be like this. Okay, so it's stored in the database. All right, well, let's go see that in TablePlus. See if I'm telling. Yep, there it is. There's salad. And notice too, it already created the created at and it created the updated at. And they look like they're just a second or so off. Yeah, that's interesting. And milliseconds, right? And that's, I guess, as expected because it ran that function. It looks like it ran the created at first, and then it ran the updated at. And we can see them, recipe.created at, and did you mean created at? Yes, I forgot my D. Thank you. So Python is so helpful, isn't it? Did you mean? And then the updated at. Okay, so this would be a good time to actually show you that updated at magic happening, where we're not going to, well, one thing that was magical to me is that we got those timestamps. We didn't have to do anything other than put that in the code for the class. Now, let's change this recipe name, and let's change the name. The way we would change the name is just like this, so recipe and then dot and then that attribute that we're looking at, and we've kind of seen this. Created at, here's updated at, and it's printing it. But I'm going to change the name, and I'm going to change it to fruit salad. And if you're a Wiggles fan, you're now singing the song Fruit Salad. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay too. So we'll press return. Now let's look at recipe.updated at. Create at should stay the same, but updated at should change. Right now, you're going to be like, Drew, you're a liar. It didn't change. Why didn't it change? Well, did it change in the database? No, it's still ending in 47. You have changed nothing. That's true. I have changed the name. It should be fruit salad, right? Oh, nope. Still says salad, Drew. What's going on? You have not persisted this to the database. Right now, everything is living in memory. So in order to persist to the database, you would just do store in database again. Just like you did up here. So store in database actually pushed it into the database and gave us the ID. And then we haven't seen the ID, so I'll show you that here before we go too far. But let's see this updated at happen. Okay, so now if I go to recipe.updated at, we're gonna see a change. So the updated, that magic is happening, that updated at is updating when you store it in the database. Now the created at should stay the same, and sure enough it did. So this row and this row are exactly the same. I failed to show you this, but we have an ID now. Look at that, it's 1. And if I print just the recipe, I should see that. There it is. And we know it's 1 from here. Now if I refresh, I'm going to see fruit salad, and then the updated at is now has been changed. It was ending in that 47. Now it's ending in a different number. So that is creating, that is updating, and let's delete. And I think that is all that I talked about. Oh, I did talk about count. This is a cool thing. So you can, like I said, I would live in here if I could. I just love playing with the data. This is a great place to play with the data. If you want to see how many recipes there are, so you would say, here's the model, query, and we're getting all this for free from the ORM, the Object Relational Mapping, which is, for us, Flask SQL Alchemy. You can just do count. And it shows you that there's 1. Okay, so let's actually delete that 1 that we have. We have it in memory. There it is, recipe. So I'm just going to use the method that we have defined, which is delete from database. And now if I go to my TablePlus and refresh, it's gone. And if I come here and I count, I get 0. So it's gone. Now, you say it's gone, you're like, but Drew, it's right here. It's still living in memory, and it's still saying the ID is 1. I mean, but it's just living in memory. It's not persisted to the database. Now, if you make another recipe, then your ID, watch this. So let's do recipe 2. Let's just do new recipe so you don't think that I'm actually, that 2 is coming from the variable name, because it's not. New recipe. And let's do recipe, and the name, I'm going to make pizza. Okay. So, and we will store that in the database. So new recipe. If I print new recipe, I'm still going to get, like, you have none there. We'll do store in database. All right. Now, here's kind of the cool thing. We deleted 1, right? And so, like, that is now coming back as 1. Interesting. That's how SQLite must work. That's very convenient. in SQL Alchemy, in MySQL, I believe it persists. It kept that record of one, and so you lose the one position, and I kind of expected actually to go to two, but SQLite does a little bit different. And at first, I always thought, like, it's SQL. Aren't they all the same? They're all just a little bit different. SQLite, MySQL, MS SQL, they all have just their slight differences. And um, I really like SQLite when I'm testing out because I can even upload my, I can, now I'm not recommending this for any kind of production type scenario, but if you have something that you're testing with a colleague or you're demoing it for like teaching purposes, I'm able to include my database, and then the person that gets the database from the repository, gets the project from the repository, also has the database, so they can actually see everything I'm seeing too. So it has that nice feature of the database basically being in one file that you can, if you need to, pass. So yeah, we've deleted, we created, we did all the things that were CRUD-ish related. We did not read. We can do that, but I'll leave that maybe as an exercise. It's But what I want to do next is actually look at CRUD with Flask make model. Now we saw CRUD in action with Flask make controller. We'll do that with Flask make model, and that will wire up all the things because we can't just live in the Flask shell. I would love that, but most people expect routes, controllers, templates, and be able to see the page come to life because we've just been living with Hello World. All right, so we'll see that in the next video.